Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Wednesday, February 27th. We're on the Asian account. We have a challenge of friend quest. Let's see if we can do that before we have to jump into the Tavern Brawl. We have to play 3 Tavern Brawl games also. Can we re-roll this? 20 that costs 2 or less, we'll probably be able to do that. Challenge friend. Darn it. Disconnected. Right at that second. Alright, well then Tavern Brawl we go.
Welcome to the Brawl of Champions. Choose your fighter and lead them.
Even though we got all of the news done this on Monday and caught up on the backlog, we still ended up with a ton of news. It might be okay to have a bit of a backlog on Wednesdays as long as we get it done on Fridays, but in general I'd like to get all the news done as quickly as possible. It's not fair to games and news stories, particularly if I'm delaying their announcement 3 days just because I don't have time for it. Ideally, if I was going to focus more on the news, I would have 2 or 3 other people here, just 2 or 3 other people announcing news and covering it in longer streams. It's so silly that I can make probably 4 hours every other day, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, of new, unique bits of news just about video games. I can report on all of that. I'm not making the news, I'm just reporting it. And yet, you see other YouTube channels that'll boil down like a day's worth of news into 5, 10, 15 minutes because they're just going over the bare minimum and they're talking rather fast. What does this one do? Whenever your hero takes damage in your turn, the enemy takes it instead. Okay. So, we'll start with that. We need to win once and then play 3 games. Or you see things like 24-hour news channels that really only report on maybe an hour a day's worth of news, and they're covering all the news in the world, or they should be, but instead they'd rather just repeat the same thing over and over again. I guess their approaches are just, maybe they make more money, but they don't seem right, in my opinion. Alright. Let's do this. What is this?
Job's done.
Okay. We have a game on Steam called Hades Star, which says it's a massive multiplayer. Looks like it's a space game, so I'm kind of out already. Because it's free to play, massive multiplayer, space game. That's like 3 things I don't like. In-app purchases makes it number 4. So it's out there if you're interested, I guess, but let's see. Do summon minion, deal 3 damage to it. I can't play this, and I really can't play this. Do that. So I need a way to protect this guy if I'm gonna start doing damage. Or I don't have to protect that guy, okay. That gives us some more time. Battle cries triggered twice, interesting.
Who knows what secrets will uncover? Feel my pain.
Job's done.
Freezing trap. Like, this is just gonna keep on happening. Gamasutra has an article. Amy Henning calls single-player games, quote, just a harder and harder proposition. Amy Henning Amy Henning, known for doing the Uncharted series and then the canceled Star Wars game, 1313, I believe was what she was supposedly working on. I feel like she's really just gotten a raw deal, and it might very well be that she's just not that good of a writer, and it's known. It's not like the Uncharted game is so super popular for its story. But she also worked on Legacy of Kain, which is kind of nichely popular for its story. There's a quote here. I don't think anybody would say single player is dead. Look at the current crop of games. It's just a harder and harder proposition. I don't know how much of this really comes down to maybe how much she's asking too. She may have just priced herself totally out of the market. That is a possibility. Everything she wants to do is just too expensive. Right, this. And then this. This. Interesting, the animation doesn't correct itself. I don't know if this was really a story though. This is more of like, yes, in an interview she said something. I'd like to see Amy Henning given the opportunity to write more stories. In the same way, I guess I'd like to see almost any writer be given the opportunity to write more stories, but yeah, I don't know what her current position even is. I don't think she works for EA anymore. The thing that maybe as a writer she can't do, unlike other game developers, is spin off and start her own company. And it seems like no company really wants to hold on to a writer consistently. And there's probably some great reasons for that. Let's see, do we want to kill something or do we want to just attack?
Job's done.
This is about the only way the secrets would work against him, is if it did damage to me, which I guess he didn't have an explosive trap. Moving on, TechRaptor. I guess this is probably big news, but it's going to be big news for a long time, I suppose. So the fact that there was another Nintendo Direct and it was announced. The Nintendo Directs certainly go to show how Reggie of Nintendo of America really didn't matter anymore. It's just like translated Nintendo Directs coming directly from Japan. And I imagine the same will be the case for Bowser, too. He'll just not have... He'll really not have anything to do. 5 damage to an enemy minion. 3 damage to all other characters. Taunt, 2 damage. Steal. 5 damage to a minion. To heal. 9 damage randomly split. Might kill some people. I might as well do it now.
Job done.
Alright, that gets him down to 3. So I can play this next turn and win. Yeah, as long as this doesn't get me down to 3. So yeah, TechRaptor has an article. Pokemon Shield and Pokemon Sword have been announced. This will be interesting. I haven't seen too much anything about this. Generation 8 will take place in the Galar region with a very diverse range of environments. Galar is an industrial area with sprawling cities and people and Pokemon working side by side. Interesting. And let's see if we can win this before. Let's see. 3 damage to all other characters. Yeah, unless he has a trap that gives him immunity. I won? Alright, that's good because it took us a lot of effort to get a win in the European account. So now we'll just play these 2 for fun and we're done. So here's a screenshot of the Galar region. Although maybe this isn't as much a screenshot as a artistic rendering and drawing. Seems like you're probably starting at the bottom and working your way generically up to the top. Doesn't seem like there'll be too much water, but there is a whole water section, I guess. Your starter Pokemon will be Grocky, Scorn Bunny, and Sobel, which seems like that's fire, grass, and water type. So there was some speculation about if they had gone with 3 different starter types instead of just green, red, and blue. If they had gone for a psychic type or a ghost type or anything along that lines, that might have been a cool idea. But they didn't go that way. There's a video here, trailer, that I'll watch. I don't want to show it, of course, because YouTube will, Nintendo of Japan will claim it. The graphics look pretty good. This is the first Pokemon game that is expected to be on the Switch, not the new 3DS or whatever the most recent thing is. It seems like you will be getting random attacks again, so it's not the let's go Pikachu, let's go Eevee style of fight. I would say this is also the beginning of a slightly new style of how the humans are depicted in Pokemon games. They're still going for a tall, kind of skinny kids, a little bit bigger and taller than you might imagine they would have been in previous games. But it is also sort of trying to stay away from just a anime, generic anime looking design. So it seems like maybe they will look better in cutscenes than they will look in the actual games, because I'm looking at a video, part of this video, and it's out of sync with what I think they'll really look like.
Don't blink.
There's a lot of work that goes into Pokemon games in general because you're having to make potentially 150 new Pokemon, or at least a significant amount of Pokemon. So, let's see. So let's see if we can get away with showing one frame. And this is pointless. Like, I can do as much damage as I want, but none of it seems to matter because all my spells only do damage to minions. So here's a still paused frame. So you're going with the skinny, long, slender arms, like anatomically incorrect compared to even the hands. You're going with still the anime big eyes. I mean, you're never going to get away from that on a Japanese creator, but there's no wild, crazy hair here. There's no high fashion dress. This is very, very realistic images, and I assume this is the female character that you play as. Looking at the background, you can see it's a little bit rougher than even what they look like, but this is a step forward. Like, Game Freak and really has not like, they really have not had to deal with the idea of animating anything with any level of quality. Let's see, can I do both of these? No. 14 damage into the ones to the side of it. Didn't have enough mana. So yeah, Pokemon Shield and Sword. It is also, I guess, theoretically breaking away from the red and blue idea a little bit, but not really, because Sword is still blue and Shield is still red. I don't know why you would go that route, because it kind of makes it feel like blue should always choose the blue starter Pokemon and red should always choose the red starter Pokemon, and then that leaves really the green out in the cold. And then the next Pokemon games that come out, if it's like anything else, there'll be a Pokemon Yellow where you're playing to let's see, 15 damage to a minion and 3 to the sides. There we go. Yeah, it will be Pokemon Yellow or Pokemon Gold and Silver. I'm not even sure if Gold and Silver were doing red and blue, or if they were doing their own games. I think they were doing their own games. Like, there is definitely a lack of understanding in my mind about how many actual Pokemon stories have been told. If this is the 8th generation, does that really mean there have been 8 different stories told, or does it mean something different? Because I wouldn't be surprised if it meant something kind of different. And then there is definitely confusion between what actually happened in the Pokemon games and what happens in Pokemon cartoon, because those are also separate things. For me particularly, I'm a weird outlier here. Like, as a YouTuber, it's kind of, what is Nintendo's policy on streaming these days? Like, can we stream or can we not stream? Yeah, I'd have to double check what Nintendo's policy even is on streaming. but I heavily suspect I would have to get a Switch, yeah, of course, which I don't own. If I did get a Switch, there's certainly a large collection at this point of games that I'd be interested in playing. I'd probably have to get some kind of capture box to record footage off the Switch, and even at that, I don't think I'd be playing Pokemon Shield or Sword. I'd be playing Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu, and it will be interesting to find out, and I suspect very much that you can't do this. It would be kind of nice if all the people who played Let's Go Eevee or Let's Go Pikachu could transfer those Pokemon that they collected in that game over to Pokemon Shield and Sword, and you can just get a really helpful one-up in that idea to
The might of Dalaran has arrived.
to make it very easy for people who've only played Let's Go Pokemon games, and would like to break into playing the regular games, but wouldn't want to have to collect them all, because it's the collect them all mentality that is a bit of the problem in Pokemon games. Like, it's appealing to little kids who have nothing else to do, and I'm not sure that nowadays little kids have nothing else to do. Like, when they're competing for their time with Fortnite and so many other games, the idea of just playing one Pokemon game might be too much. And we may start to see, as the generations go on, that the Pokemon, the main Pokemon games in the series are going to turn out to be the same, shorter and shorter, instead of being long RPG games. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Cartoon Fall, which kind of looks like an asset flip, but kind of looks like it might be a bit of a Boom Blocks clone. Might actually be worth playing.
I will fight if I must, and I will triumph.
Seems like it might be cool, it might not. This is a game that is $7.19 discounted. It's got Russian, German, Spanish as languages. I'm willing to put this on the follow list and see. This might be a troll game, this might be a joke game. It's really hard to tell what it is. But yeah, doesn't require VR. Doesn't have a lot of achievements. Seems like you're doing slightly varied things in different places. So there might be something here. Hard to tell. Moving on. We have a game on Steam called Battaloon, and then a bunch of Asian characters. This looks like a player versus player game where your balloons fighting each other. It's a slightly interesting spin on player versus player arena games, but none of these have really caught my interest. $6.99, multiplayer only. That's pretty expensive, and it's definitely not for me, but there's a bit of polish here. I wouldn't put this in the category of downright terrible, but yeah, just not within the level of what I'm doing. Death rattles triggered twice. Okay. So what can we do? Rush, overkill. Add 3 healing spells to your hand. Death rattle, draw a death rattle minion from your deck. Let's do this. Rush. Do that. that. And then end the turn. Gamasutra has an article. Half-Life 2 developers explore when developers should ignore playtester feedback. Quote, "It's about learning to have faith in the whole arc of the thing. We're pacing it and holding back for the payoff." Now, this is about a 5-paragraph, with each paragraph being 2 sentences long, article. It's just reading the title, because that's all I'm willing to read on this. It's the prerogative of an artist to ignore criticism. In the case of playtesting, that's literally the project manager, the developer, the project lead, paying somebody to give them feedback. So you want to, in that instance, get your money worth. And if you're not getting your money's worth, then you're wasting your time. So, yeah, I played that wrong. So yeah, if you're a developer in Half-Life 2 and you want to ignore the playtester, that is fine. But if you're the project lead and you're ignoring the playtester, then you should probably fire the playtester. I mean, it's a call, certainly. Maybe sometimes the playtester gives you good feedback, sometimes it doesn't. There really shouldn't be any communication between a developer and a playtester anyways. Once you're at the level that you're hiring playtesters, that kind of feedback should be filtering through the manager. And then it gets to the point, well, if you're a developer and you're ignoring your manager, then you're not really doing your job. So this whole article kind of falls apart in the idea that there's just there's either two things happening here that shouldn't be happening while developing a game. You have a developer ignoring their project lead manager, or you have a playtester who's giving bad feedback and still staying employed. So whichever it is implies there's a dysfunction in your system. Alright. Would this kill this? No.
Join me.
Job done.
Yeah. Let's see. Alright, well, this next game I have is called A Story of Us, Episode 1, First Memories. It's tagged nudity and sexual content, and it looks like almost every screenshot has some kind of pre-bought 3D model of characters in their underwear or nude for kind of no reason. Like, it almost feels like something here is an attempt to make a real adventure game, but not really. This game, A Story of Us, Episode 1, First Memories, is $5.99. It says it's English with full audio. Yeah, I just don't buy it. In every sense of the word, I don't buy it. This is the first game from this developer, and yeah, this just looks like pre-bought assets merged together, trying to look like a game. What's weird here is it's actually trying to look like a game, when most instances in this case, when you're just trying to sell on sex, you don't even spend the effort. You don't even try to look like a game. Alright. So if I was to do this, And this.
Job done.
And then return. So let's move on.
Tortola, preserve us.
Next we have a game on Steam called Dream Rose, which looks like it's probably really bad. Like MS Paint graphics level of quality. Asian characters for the distributor, English language not supported, $4.99 Korean release. Yeah, I can see a bit of Korean art style here. A thick white line on the background. Yep, just not up there in quality though, so I'm not interested. This death rattle. If we had Stalag. What do we want to do? Play it? And then do this, I suppose. And do this, I suppose. Do that, I suppose.
The red one tastes like cherry.
Yep, and I'm just gonna lose, which is fine. That's alright, we'll just play some regular stuff, or we still have challenge a friend quests to do. See if we have anybody we can challenge right now. No. So we've gotten like 2 packs for each account today. None of the cards are particularly interesting, although we did get a golden legendary, and that was nice. But the vast majority of these cards are just redundant. They're just building up our dust piles for the next expansion. If the next expansion that comes out and it has nothing interesting in it, I could probably get a pretty big boost on particularly the European and Asian account meta decks that I'm playing. That being said, if there isn't anything new and interesting in this next expansion, it's going to be bad for Hearthstone too. We kind of need to have something new, cool, and wild. Not as in the wild gameplay set, but just something we hadn't thought of before, something that really brings back the streamers and the people who are tired of playing Hearthstone, and brings in new crowds, and just does all kinds of weird and crazy things. One thing they could do as a suggestion or idea, here, what do we need to do? Challenge a friend and play a bunch of minions that are 2 or less. Let's see if we've got something that would be 2 or less. Odd rogue or odd paladin. We'll try odd rogue. One thing they could do is they could have cards that affect less based on the level you're on. So if you're at level 60, it has, let's say it has 61 attack, but it loses 1 attack for every level the character you're playing as, your hero is. So if your character is at level 35, then it would be this would have to be a 10 mana card basically. But at level 35, that would leave 25 attack on a 10 mana card, which is not crazy. And then if you're at a level 60 minion, which I don't think on my account any of these are below the 30s, that would be cool. That would bring in new players. That would give even old players a reason to want to play. Let's just double check and see how close this guy is to being done. We may have to just randomly friend people. Alright, so they're not anywhere on that. So yeah, if they did something with levels, that would be cool. If they just made 9 new base heroes, that would be cool. If they really changed it up, that's what I'd like to see. Not just cards, not just crazy cards, or 1 or 2 crazy cards, and everything else being the same.
You asked for it.
We're at the point with Hearthstone where you could potentially just run it into the ground with insane cards that ruin the meta, and you still would be. It might be worth doing that. It might be worth gambling on that to bring in new people versus keeping the old people happy. Moving on, Gematsu has an article: first-person puzzle platformer Metamorphosis announced for PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC, due out this fall. Here's your screenshot. Has a Steam page, and there's a trailer here that I'll watch, but I don't want to show off trailers, just in case I get content ID'd. Although, yeah, I haven't had a content ID in a while, although I'm recording the Star Wars games, and I suspect I will get one of those pretty quickly. Jedi Knight, what was it? Jedi Knight 2, the one that was made by Acclaim and Raven, is the most recent one I've played. And if it weren't for the fact that it didn't have a map and the level was way too long, the first level took me like an hour and 10 minutes to beat, and it still is embracing this mentality of you having to look up and down different ramps to shoot at things. Jedi Knight 2 was the first playable Star Wars in the Jedi Knight series that, had I even a little bit of nostalgia for it, I might have played it all the way through, instead of just making a one video spotlight on things. As far as Metamorphosis, the video didn't really explain much. It seems like you might metamorphosize into different kinds of animals and insects and be small. So we'll have to wait to see if I can get some more concrete information on it.
I wonder.
Let's see. Well, there is a Steam page, so I could look at some of the other screenshots on the Steam page, because Gematsu doesn't bother to show you much. No, there's nothing really on the Steam page that gives me any more information either. Gematsu has an article: media create sales 218 to 224. I think we'll probably just do a web peek on this real quick and go through these. Anthem is big and new. Nier Automata is up some. Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu still doing good.
So many.
Girls Owned Panzer Dream Tank Match DX is new at 13. Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Trilogy is new at 18. Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Trilogy for the PlayStation 4. This is Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4. And then hardware sales, they sold like 21 units so of Xbox Ones.
The light protects me.
So yeah, if I can just rush through these sales according to what is this according to
You win.
I guess this is from a company called Media Create Sales Figures. Okay, or Media Crate. So if I can speed through those sales figures, that's good. But trying to cover them word for word is the part that I want to try and avoid. All right, how far are you now to winning? This guy's not too bad, so let's watch him. Next we have a game on Steam called Deathly Storm: The Edge of Life. It looks like a kind of low effort zombie game. There's far too many of these on Steam for this to be legitimately considered. They want $19.99 for it. We could see if this developer's made anything else of interest, and the answer to that is no. So come on. Don't tell me you jumped right into another game. Alright, sweet. Thank goodness for that. We'll stick with Odd Rogue. All we need to do is play the guy. We don't have to win, I think.
Valera versus Anduin.
Let's see.
The light shall bring victory.
Watch your back.
We've got a decent number of things that cost less than 2 mana. Or less than 3 mana. So we've got a game on Steam here called Sly Pigs, which looks like it's maybe a positioning puzzle box pusher game. I don't see anything here that interesting. Really generic, repetitive tile set and colors. Look how brown this screen is. Yeah, this feels bad. 99 cents. English and Russian. 5 achievements. I suspect it has only 5 levels in it. Let's see. We kind of already talked about this, but I guess it's slightly different. Gamatsu has an article. The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel for the PS4 launches March 29th in Europe. As far as I can tell, Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel. That's 3 days after North America. I think we already talked about this, unless I'm thinking of a different game. It's a JRPG, somewhat around trains, and that's kind of all I know. It might be one of the ones worth playing, it might not. Let's see. Let's just try and play as many of these as possible.
I fight.
And then return. Let's see. Gamatsu has an article. Sci-fi mystery game Interpoint announced for the PS4, Xbox One, and PC, due out first via Steam Early Access this spring. So we've gotten a decent amount of games getting announced this week. So I wonder if there was a reason for that. Yeah, I'm not sure.
This guy's tough.
Like what the event would have been that would have announced this. I'm looking at the trailer for Interpoint, and it's very polished 3D sci-fi environment of some sort. Looks kind of like a hotel, maybe a spaceship. It's a little surprising that there aren't more games where you're on a spaceship, but it's designed to look like a hotel, because that's more than likely what it would happen.
Hey, lights out.
Just gotta take out this guy. Let's see.
I fight.
Apparently there's portals in this game and Interpoint. And some weirdness. It's going to be a photon gun, which is a key element of gameplay. A twisted story with several levels of depth, conspiracy, and various endings. Okay, when it comes out, we'll hear more about it and we'll see if it's actually worth it. Worth anyone's time.
I fight. I fight.
Here we go.
Finally, took 2 turns to kill that. Next we have a game on Steam called Circle Brawl, which obviously is a very low effort, bad game. Maybe it's an ag.io clone, or just a fighting game using only circles. Early access for $9.99. We're starting to see more of this happen. It's getting annoying where you have people making terrible games and then also asking for what is a ungodly amount of money for those terrible games. Okay.
Mushroom power!
Do that.
I fight.
And that.
Here we go.
Next we have a game on Steam called The Lost Light of Sisu, which looks like a Super Meat Boy platformer game. It does have some polish, so I don't want to just immediately say it's bad, but it is going for that style of gameplay that does not agree with me. It's $8.99 discounted, 40 levels and 3 bosses for $8.99. Might be enough, might not. Really, I'm gonna have to leave this one under an unknown quantity. Like, this very well might be good, but it's not gonna make it to my follow list. So if you like Super Meat Boy, if you got really good at that, then this might be a game for you. If you hated Super Meat Boy and found it incredibly frustrating, it almost certainly isn't. GameIndustry.biz has an article. Mattel's video game division eyes original IP. The joint vision between Mattel and NetEase, the Chinese company, plots 3 to 4 new games a year. Okay, so Mattel would be like Hot Rod Cars games and maybe Barbie and what else? Like Mattel, I know they make toys, but they're kind of all over the place, and I know probably a lot of their toys are licenses. Says the operation boosts almost 70 employees, featuring 60 game developers based in Hangzhou, China, and a further 10 in the firm's publishing office in Los Angeles. So it's basically just a Chinese operation making what I assume are going to be pretty cheap Chinese video games for kids that probably are for mobile. Let's see. Mattel board games. Let's see. Mattel board games are obvious products to convert into digital games. Okay, but is Mattel owned by Hasbro, or is Mattel second fiddle to Hasbro? It would be a question I would have there, because Mattel's board games might be a bunch of secondary board games that nobody cares about. And then also they have Barbie and Hot Wheels. But there are plans for titles based on more character-led IPs such as Barbie and Hot Wheels games. So we're going to see more Barbie and Hot Wheels games, okay? Like, that may be a good thing. That it is kind of in the same field as the Dr. Seuss games. As I can't see it, really. I can't see good kids games coming out of this effort. But maybe. Like, I would love to see a great Barbie game that I felt the need to cover. I'd love to see a Hot Wheels game come out that I would feel the need to cover and talk about. But I seriously am critical that that's what's going to happen here. I think we're going to get mobile games with in-app purchases and a bunch of in gambling and stuff that you probably should never let your kids play. Or they'll make good games, but it won't matter because they're making games about things that people don't really care about. I don't know what the real popularity of Barbie or Hot Wheels is after the age of 6 or 7. Whereas generations previously, you could probably have Barbies up to age 10, 11, 12. Now kids kind of expect each other to grow up more, and they're already into Fortnite, they're already into something else. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Million to One Hero, which looks like a platformer, again going for the Super Meat Boy style. Not 100% certain. It's lacking a little bit of polish in some of these screenshots. But seeing all these spikes is scaring me away. So let's see. Yeah, it seems like it might be a Mario Maker style of game too. Let's see.
So many.
Early access, $17.99, English and Spanish. I wonder how many people click Spanish Spain thinking that it just says Spanish Span, S-P-A-N, as a abbreviation.
So many options.
Here we go.
Yeah, I can't see keeping Million to One Hero on the follow list though. Game Sutra has an article. Enjoy these 24 games in the Indie Mega Booth Showcase at GDC 19. This is an advertisement pretty much for GDC. The games that are being depicted are... Let me just go through all of these real quick. I think I recognize Heaven's Vault. There's one called Unannounced Title, and then the rest of them are names of games I've never heard of. So they're not very relevant as it is.
Here we go.
I should have attacked the other way. But we'll do a quick web peek and we'll just scroll down. Airborne Kingdom, Anew, Dice Trek, Disco Asylum, Look for Heals, She's Dreams Elsewhere, Those Who Remain. That might be one I've heard of. TikTok, A Tale for Two, Twin Cop, Where Bees Make Honey, Wall True Learn, Winter More Tactics. Black Future 88 is Heaven's Vault, Hell is Other Demons, Kisuro, Lost Words, One Step from Even, Shadow Brawlers, Sloppy Forgeries, The Wild at Heart, Unannounced Title, Valve Guard, and Waybreak. Okay, so yeah, I don't think an average video game fan should be going to GDC anyways. It's not for you. It's for game developers. That's why it's called the Game Developer Conference. And so if game developers want to look at indie games and see if they can steal any ideas from indie developers, I guess that is fine by me. GameIndustry.biz
The Frost Wolves stand ready.
has this article that we already talked about, but their title put it in a very different light than Gamasutra did. So GameIndustry.biz says, devs to get a larger cut as GOG ends the fair pricing package for consumers. With an increasing share paid to developers, our cut gets smaller, says digital distributor. Now, the thing here is it will open the door, as best as I could see, to GOG giving developers a larger cut, but in no way does it promise that. Like, it is a false conclusion by quite a bit to assume that that's where this ends up. Let's just end the turn there. Like, if GOG was going to say, hey, we're giving our developers a bigger cut, but they would have announced that, and it would have been practically impossible to report it the way it has been reported, because you would have just buried the fact that the announcement would be, we're giving developers a bigger cut. Oh, by the way, we also had to, in order to implement that, we had to terminate the fair price program. Let's see.
That's not a valid target.
There we go. I should have played this first, then played the Phantom Knives, and that would have killed the guy. That's clearly the strategy I should have done. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called The Adventures of Perseus, which seems to just be a match 3 game by HH Games. Seems like they kind of are flooding Steam at this point with the same kind of games. What's interesting, I'd say, about this one is they're kind of going for a slightly provocative screenshots here for a match 3 game, which probably has nothing to do with any of that. Like, that's ridiculous. But you can see the more like this is Honey Pop, which has a lot to do with that. $4.24 discounted for a match 3 game. Isn't asking a ton, but it is asking possibly more than you would like when you start going through all the games that this publisher has published. There's a lot of things here that don't look particularly good.
Well met.
It's also designed in a way to make it look like it's from a different developer who makes match 3 games that are also based on Greek myths.
What a ball.
So they're intentionally trying to create confusion, market confusion. So yeah, that's not a game that really needs to be on the follow list or anything. Like, I doubt I'm going to go heavy into playing match 3 games ever again. I'll play maybe Honey Pop 2 if it comes out, depending on whether it has any simple uncensored version on Steam or not.
Well met.
Alright, we'll just go and squelch this guy. And what is going on with the news, I have to ask. I really have to ask. We've gotten all 3 daily quests done this Wednesday. We've done 3 tavern brawls, and we're not done with even half of the news. So let's kind of just get halfway through. We've got a game on Steam called Magus Overfull. It looks like it is probably a flying around bullet hell game where you're playing as like a magician that can fly. If I like bullet hell games, this would be rather intriguing. It's $14.99 with no discount, but the fact is I don't like bullet hell games. They're too difficult for me, so that is that. We already talked about this article. Resident Evil 2 shipments past 4 million. This time it's from GameIndustry.biz. We have a game on Steam called Your Home, which is suffering from dark screenshot syndrome terribly. Like, this is all you can see on the screen, and it's an RPG Maker game. Just like trying to hide the fact that it is just a terrible RPG Maker game. They want 59 cents discounted. It's part of a big bundle. It's got art books and things, English and Russian. Yeah. Cheap Russian game. Speaking of probably troll games, we have Super President, How to Rule the Country. This is a troll game of some sort, 60 cents for 39 cents. Let's see, English and Russian. Yep, not going to the follow list for that one either. Gamatsu has an article. Mortal Kombat adds Johnny Cage. Johnny Cage here being shown. We got a little trailer here. Let me skip through this trailer and not show it on screen. Now the complaint has been made that while the costumes for the girls have gotten more covered up, the costumes for the guys have not. In this instance, I think Johnny Cage either is directly addressing that or just coincidentally isn't doing anything with that. So Johnny Cage looks a little gray-haired. He's wearing jeans. He's wearing like a camera photographer's jacket and a black t-shirt. So although it seems like he does have a move where he can summon maybe a younger version of himself. And a lot of his fatalities and actions seem to be directly focused around him being in movies, and it's showing off like his fatalities. There's a fatality where he's playing with his action figure. So I believe Johnny Cage probably, like, no duh, he should have been in the game. It's kind of ridiculous that they're putting out different trailers for characters that it's like no duh. Also, you have to pre-order to get Shao Kahn, and Shao Kahn is showing his abs and midsection. There's basically the equivalent of a boob cutout happening on him. Let's see if I can pause the video. Alright. And can we do this? So, come over here. So Shao Kahn, who you have to pre-order, basically has a boob window here where you're seeing his six-pack right there. So the guys still are getting a lot more skin shown. It's just Johnny Cage is not one of the guys that is getting a lot more skin shown. And frankly, if they did make a new trailer of a character for Mortal Kombat 11 and it was a female character in very revealing sexy clothing, that would probably end a lot of the complaining right there. Is there's like, oh, we're just putting clothing on the older characters because they're older, and then we're going to bring out a bunch of younger characters and they're going to be the new hotness. That would be kind of cool. I think people would still be a little upset because they'd have their favorites from previous generations, but you know, it would make sense. Like, there are people out there right now who are in their 70s who were definitely dressing a lot more scantily clad when they were in their 20s. Next we have a game on Steam that's a bunch of Asian characters, Ancient War 3 Kingdoms. Knowing if it says 3 Kingdoms in it, it's probably a Chinese game. I assume this is a Chinese game. It's already mixed, and it doesn't look like it's particularly interesting as a either real-time strategy game. It's early access, free to play, English not supported, only simplified Chinese. So, yeah. No surprise there. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Fireground, which looks like it's a basic generic first-person shooter attempt at a game. A lot of asset flips, I imagine, happening here. Early access, $2.99 discounted. English and Russian. Rated E for everyone? I don't think so. Yeah, so the level of dishonesty there, I'm fairly certain. So Fireground not making it. I'm really just gonna take this, take the news to the point where I have things that happened kind of on Monday. Like we've really just been dealing with what happened on Tuesday up to this point for 3 hours. And then I'm just going to save the Monday stuff for the most part. Let's see. TechRaptor has an article. Good Old Games announces a new direct-to-account feature in the user agreement following the layoffs and the termination of their customer fidelity program fair price package. Let's see. Direct-to-account distribution. Let's see. This main novelty is a feature called GOG Direct to Account, which the agreement explains in detail. I saw a YouTube video while I'm scrolling through here where somebody went through the license agreement for the Epic Store and the license agreement for the Steam Store, and they tried to, as a non-lawyer, explain how the Epic Store was a lot worse than the Steam stores. In general, I heard a lawyer then cover it, and it seems like both are pretty generically written and designed to do about the same thing either way. So I really wouldn't worry too much about being on the Epic Store because of their licensing agreement. So the story goes on. In this case, applicable distribution platforms most likely refer to platforms such as Humble Bundle, Green Man Gaming, Fanatical, Indie Gala, and so on. As explained, the direct-to-account API will remove the need to redeem any codes, probably through the use of an authentication button, which is already available through the Humble Bundle for Steam purchases, though it's still basically redeeming a code. This seems to allow GOG to remove themselves partially from handling the payment processes that might overburden support teams. And in the case of purchases made through GOG Direct to Account, GOG won't be able to offer the voluntary returns guarantee, though of course there still may be a recourse with the distribution platform in general. So they're taking a step back and trying to avoid having to do support tickets, basically, by saying, hey, if you buy this game on the Humble Bundle and it's giving you a GOG copy, we're not going to be responsible if you don't get that game delivered or they mischarge your credit card on Humble Bundle store. In general, I'd like to see some standard API out there where if you buy something on the Humble Bundle or any store, if you buy something on Steam, you should be able to get a copy on GOG. But I seriously doubt we would ever see that happen. It'd be nice if government stepped in and said, no, that has to happen. If you buy a license to a game, you get the license to the game on all platforms. But that's never likely to happen. Gamasutra has an article, get a job, Cold Iron is hiring an experienced producer. So if you want to work for Cold Iron via Fox Next in San Jose, California, that job is available. I'm not sure who Cold Iron is though. So, let's see. Cold Iron is a team of passionate game developers located in San Jose. Yeah. Doesn't really talk about any games that they've made, so I suspect they haven't made anything of importance. Alright, so, and at that point, what do we have? Ni no Kuni 2 Revenant Kingdom's last DLC releases March 19th. We already talked about that. We already talked about that. We already talked about that. So I'm just closing things without even loading them right now. Federal Trade Commission to host a public loot box workshop. I've already kind of talked about that. There's a rumor Relic Entertainment might be Microsoft's next studio acquisition. I don't know what Microsoft really is going to get or do with all these acquisitions. Either they're going to come out with their new console and have a whole bunch of games ready to play on that console, or they're going to just give up on it halfway through and kind of shut down all these companies, and the people that work at the companies will just go on to make new companies, which seems to be the trend in video games, is that once a company gets acquired, all of the skill just gets drained out of it after a couple of years. Gamasutra has an article. Microsoft CEO defends the principled and democratic HoloLens military contract, which the people at Microsoft were not happy about that. We've got some games, certainly. There is 8chan with the THQ thing. I wonder, let's see. I wonder what this really looks like. Let's see, scrolling down the 8chan thread. I'm seeing a lot of hentai. I'm seeing a lot of meme pictures. I'm seeing a lot of posts. 8chan definitely looks a lot like 4chan, and it's not very pretty. You know what I'm not seeing though is not really seeing any child pornography. I'm not seeing anything. I'm just seeing hentai pictures and anime pictures mostly of girls fully dressed too. It's the closest I'm seeing. And I'm scrolling down here. Yeah, and when THQ Nordic announced this AMA on /V on 8chan, they said specifically they were going to have somebody on there monitoring and moderating and removing anything that was nasty, is what they said. And I guess maybe the moderation and the definition of nasty might be varied. Yeah, I'm halfway through this AMA. So take it, you can take my word or not, but I've scrolled down halfway through this AMA. I'm not seeing any pictures much at all of real people, of anything. Well, there's a picture of Hitler, or maybe Hitler, maybe an actor pretending to be Hitler. But I'm just seeing a bunch of anime and Pepes and things like that. Just troll posts. Like, there clearly are trolls on 8chan. But I don't see anything illegal. Like, if I thought there really was going to be something illegal here, I wouldn't be on a live stream scrolling down the post. And it seems like on 8chan, just I've gone down to the bottom. I don't know if that means I've seen everything or if I've just seen the first page of everything, but it seems like you can only post one image anyways, so it's not even a very useful system if you were going to post images. Maybe there's something else to that. Speaking of THQ Nordic, though, the Darksiders 3 DLC, The Crucible, is coming out pretty soon. I'm not sure I'd want to play The Crucible in any of the Darksiders games, but yeah, if you already have Darksiders 3 and you liked it, you might be interested. The game Hydrophobia, which usually goes pretty cheap on Steam, is now backwards compatible for the Xbox 360, so that gives me a bit of an excuse to play that game. Let's see, what else did Major Nelson tweet that might interest me? Oh yeah, also a game called Marathon Durandal is backwards compatible. Never heard of that one. So we're getting more backwards compatibility. There's also some push happening where they're trying to make it so that Xbox One games are just directly playable by Windows 10. So it's not that you would have to have a Windows 10 version of an Xbox One game that you could give to people who have purchased that game. It's that all the games potentially are going to work, and then that's a very large player base. Game of Switcher has the same article. GOG lays off 12 employees over reported financial strain. We already talked about that. Yeah, we already talked about that. Let's see, we can talk about that Friday. I'm trying to go through the news that needs to be reported. GameIndustry.biz, a no-deal Brexit would mean a dark dystopian UK opinion piece. We are getting the same ideas, that same concept over and over again. I recently kind of watched a speedrun of Darksiders 3, and the way they speedran it, it really didn't ruin any of the story for me, so I'm actually more interested now in playing the game than I was before, just because I saw a little bit more of it. Komatsu has an article, Leisure Suit Larry, Wet Dreams Don't Dry, has been rated for the PS4 and Switch in Germany. So apparently a console version of the Leisure Suit Larry games are coming out, and that's a little surprising. And that's the newest Leisure Suit Larry, not the other one that happened before then. Gamatsu has an article, To the Moon is coming to the Switch this summer. That's all that really needs to be said about that. There seems to have been no update really from the game Devotion being pulled from Steam. I think they're really just going to try to lay low for maybe a few weeks or a month and then try to put it back on the storefront. Or, you know, they may never put it back on Steam and they may only sell it directly from their store or change the name or something else. There's several different ways you could try to go, and none of them are really going to work too well. Now, there's a ton of games I'm skipping over here. So... that game, Remy Lore Lost Girl in the Lands of Lore, is now available for Xbox One. It's odd that game just popped up. It must not be on PC. still trying to go. A TechRaptor article, Stardew Valley Android release date has been set for March of 2019. I feel like playing the Stardew Valley on Android makes a lot more sense. I have 4 people that are interested in that. Gamatsu has the similar article. Overwatch adds a new hero, Baptiste. Assume that's how you pronounce it. Man, and just goes on and on. Let's see. Gamasutra Break says fostered a culture of fear among British game developers. And see, even at this point, 3 hours and 30 minutes in, there's a ton of games I'm skipping over, and I'm still not at the point where I can even see the game. The end. Let's see. Yeah, here we are. I'm looking at detention. It's still the only game listed on Steam, so they're still working around that. Oh, I did want to mention, we talked about this game, Negligee Love Stories, last stream, and there was a question as to why is it rated mostly negative, considering how the main game Negligee was rated very positive, and it is like the first game to be completely uncensored released on Steam, so that was questionable. I did a little bit of research. Actually, there's 2 versions of it. There is a Negligee Love Stories available for sale, and then there is Negligee Love Stories bracket adult version. The adult version is rated very positively. The censored version apparently fades out on any of the sex scenes, so it's very unpopular. And they're releasing it in a very odd way as 2 separate games, which, I mean, this is certainly growing pains, but it does certainly explain why it's being rated negatively. People apparently do love the game, they just don't love the censored version of it. Let's see. So I'm on the Humble Bundle store, so I'm not too far from where I wanted to be at the end. Now, there's a comic Star Trek 2019 IDW bundle. What Star Trek comics are these? I tried to watch Deep Space Nine, and I watched the 1 episode with Q, and then fast forwarded through it, reading like all of the descriptions on Netflix. And man, I cannot ever, I think, see myself liking Deep Space Nine or watching all of it. There's a few characters in there I like, but the number of characters I dislike are way higher. Yeah, the Star Trek IDW comic bundle has 13 days on it if you're interested in what I assume are PDF bundles of comic books. But the bundle that I want to point out, and I'm asking people to consider doing this, is the Humble Neptunia bundle, which is a inclusion of $1 or more. I guess we could probably just web peek this. Can we web peek this? Let's risk it. $1 or more will get you Amnesia Memories and Hyperdimension Neptunia Rebirth 1 Deluxe Edition bundle, Hyperdimension Neptunia Rebirth 1 Coliseum and Characters DLC, and Hyperdimension Neptunia Rebirth 2 Deluxe Edition bundle. For more than the average of $6.98, you will get Hyperdimension Neptunia Rebirth 3. I believe the Rebirth series are the remakes of the original games. Hyperdimension Neptunia U Action Unleashed, which is probably a side game that is not a RPG, JRPG. And Cyber Dimension Neptunia 4 Goddesses, which is the online like MMO game. I think you can play it. It says it's DLC only, probably because the game itself is free to play. And then if you pay $12 or more, which is what I'm asking people to do, and then send those Steam codes over to me via Twitter direct message, you get Mega Dimension Neptunia 7 Digital Deluxe Edition, or maybe perhaps it's pronounced VII, and then Mega Dimension Neptunia VIIR Deluxe Bundle, which I believe is just the VR version of this, if I was to guess. And if you don't know what the Hyperdimension series of games is, they're JRPGs where you play as characters that represent video game companies and consoles, and they're kind of risque and sexy, and there's a little clothing damage on them, but otherwise they're just your standard JRPG. If I get these games, I will try to play them at some point and see if I can get them on YouTube as family-friendly content. If I can't, then I will just be happy to own them and support the industry. And they may really be the best JRPGs out there to consider. And I'm scrolling down my Twitter feed and seeing if there's anything more that needs to be announced this Wednesday. I seriously doubt any more news. It says, ooh, TechRaptor has here. Fortnite revenue down 48% month over month. Digital game spending down year over year. Interesting. Fortnite doing that great. Mario Tennis Aces Pauline trailer. Pauline in Mario Tennis. Let's see. Scrolling down to see if there's anything else. Xbox Live Games with Gold games have been announced for March. I don't announce those. If you have Games with Gold, you probably already know. Oculus Quest targets quality first approach with more stringent store curation. I'll have to read that GameIndustry.biz article. Let's see. Now I'm looking at things that are like 4 hours ago, so I believe at this point I have seen all the new posts. Alright, well, that's gonna be it for this stream. We're falling behind again. I really gotta figure out what's going on with the news. Is it just because January and most of February was silent that we needed this we needed this rush of more news to talk about now? Or is this just going to be a really big year for video game news? I don't know. Anyways, that's it for the stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.